When you arrive at old age, you begin to understand the true value of peace. It becomes clearer than ever that the world has always been noisy, full of opinions, demands, judgments, and expectations. And for many years, maybe you played along. You defended your choices, explained your beliefs, tried to be understood, and often you stretched yourself too thin just to be accepted. But now is the time to stop chasing validation from a world that's rarely satisfied. The beauty of growing older is that you no longer need permission to live in peace. You no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. You simply are, and that's enough. You see, focusing on yourself at this stage isn't an act of selfishness. It's an act of self-respect. After decades of living for others, for children, for spouses, for jobs, for society, there comes a sacred moment when you realize it's your turn to be still, your turn to listen inward, your turn to give yourself the attention you've so freely given away for years. There is a kind of strength in solitude that can only be understood with time. When you begin to focus on yourself, the noise of the world fades, and in its place you find clarity. You discover what truly matters: your health, your inner peace, your joy, your quiet thoughts. These things become precious, not because they're rare, but because for most of your life you were too busy to notice them. In youth we chase after everything: love, approval, money, recognition. In age, if we're wise, we chase nothing. We simply appreciate what is. Let the younger generation argue. Let them prove. Let them exhaust themselves trying to impress one another. That is their path. But yours is different now. Yours is no longer about climbing or competing. Yours is about being. And that shift, that quiet transition from striving to simply living, is a kind of freedom that cannot be explained, only experienced. Do not feel guilty for putting yourself first. Do not feel the need to justify your peace. In fact, the more you focus on yourself, the more you realize how much energy you've spent on things that never really mattered. You'll look back and see that many of the things you worried about, the opinions of others, the approval you sought, the unnecessary conflicts, were just distractions. Distractions from your own path, from your own happiness, from your own stillness. There is something profoundly powerful about a person who no longer needs to be heard to feel seen. Silence is not weakness. It is not submission. It is wisdom. It is a sign that you've made peace with who you are and no longer require the world to echo that back to you. You can sit in a room, say nothing, and still feel complete. That is power. And in focusing on yourself, you begin to heal. You begin to enjoy the little things again. A warm cup of tea in the morning, the sound of birds, the way the sunlight dances on the wall. These are things that often went unnoticed in the rush of earlier life. But now you can savor them. Now you can be present. Now you can live not just longer but deeper. To focus on yourself also means to forgive yourself for the mistakes, for the detours, for the years you spent pleasing others while neglecting your own needs. That's part of the journey too. There's no bitterness in reflection, only understanding, only growth, only peace. Let others talk. Let them debate, argue, and posture. You don't need to join in. You've learned that not every conversation is worth having, and not every comment deserves your response. You can smile, nod, and move on. The quiet within you is far more valuable than the noise around you. And if anyone questions your silence or your distance, let them. They don't need to understand. They don't need to agree. You're not here to be understood anymore. You're here to be at peace. You're here to live the rest of your life in a way that honors your spirit. And that means letting go of the need to participate in every conversation, every conflict, every commotion. It means choosing yourself quietly and unapologetically. You've done enough. You've said enough. You've given enough. Now is the time to return to yourself, to focus inward, and to allow the world to spin without needing to hold it up. That's not abandonment. It's wisdom. It's the realization that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. Let peace be your legacy. There comes a time in life, often later than we expect, when we finally see the truth in silence, not as absence, but as presence. not as weakness, but as wisdom. We live in a world where people speak quickly, loudly, and often without thinking. Everyone seems to be in a rush to be heard, to be right, to dominate the room. But as we grow older, we begin to realize something most people miss, that silence holds more power than speech ever could. In youth, you're taught to speak up, to make your point, to assert yourself, and perhaps there's a place for that when you're still trying to find your way in the world. But in old age, you've already found your way, or at least enough of it to know that arguing and explaining are rarely worth the effort. You no longer need to prove you're wise, you simply are. Your silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say, it means you've learned that not everything needs to be said. I've seen it many times. A man who holds his tongue in a room full of noise, who listens carefully while others rush to speak, and when he finally opens his mouth, everyone leans in. Why? Because when a person who doesn't always speak decides to speak, people know it matters. Silence builds strength. It sharpens thought. It reveals maturity, and more than that, it shows control. Control over one's emotions, one's ego, and one's need to be valued. There's a quiet kind of confidence that comes with age. The confidence to not interrupt. The confidence to observe. The confidence to wait. While others may think silence means you've backed down, or that you've got nothing left to offer, you and I know better. You haven't backed down. You've stepped up. You've stepped into a place where peace matters more than pride. Think about how much energy is wasted in the world today by people defending things that don't matter, debating points that will never be agreed on, and forcing opinions that will never be accepted. Why pour your time and energy into proving something to someone who's not even ready to listen? You've earned the right to conserve your strengths. Not every opinion needs to be challenged. Not every insult needs to be addressed. And not every battle needs to be fought. In silence there is observation. In silence there is understanding. You begin to notice things that others miss. The way someone speaks tells you more than their words. The way they carry themselves, the energy they bring into the room. Those are the real conversations, and you don't need to speak to read them. You don't need to react. Just observe, absorb, and respond. Only when your words will uplift, not escalate. People fear silence because it forces them to face themselves. In silence, the masks fall off, the ego quiets, the truth shows up, and not everyone is ready for it. But you in this stage of life are ready. Silence has become your teacher, and if you listen closely enough, you'll find it speaks volumes. So let them think what they will. Let them assume your silence is a lack of something. You know it's the presence of everything. You've lived enough, seen enough, and endured enough to know that being loud is easy. But being still, that takes strength. That takes discipline. That takes understanding of who you are. And when you do speak, let your words carry weight. Let them come from thought, not impulse, from experience, not emotion. Because your word, when placed carefully, can inspire change, offer clarity, or comfort someone in pain. But if you speak too often, too quickly, the meaning fades. So choose your moments. Use your voice like a tool, not a weapon. This world already has enough noise. What it needs, what your soul needs is peace. And peace is not found in shouting over others. It's found in the quiet moments when you turn inward and let the noise pass you by. There's a lesson I've come to cherish. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Sometimes the greatest wisdom you can share is the quiet example of a life lived with grace, restraint, and dignity. You don't have to match someone's volume to be heard. You don't have to mirror someone's aggression to be respected. Silence has its own language, and once you learn it, you'll find it speaks to the hearts of those who are truly listening. You've already earned your voice. Now earn your silence. Let it protect you. Let it carry you. Let it remind you that not every truth must be spoken aloud to be real, and not every feeling needs to be explained to be understood. And when the world becomes too loud, too fast, too chaotic, remember that you don't have to match its pace. Just breathe, stay still, and let your silence speak for you. Let silence be your strength. There is a sacred turning point in life, when you realize the greatest investment you can make is in yourself, not in things, not in others, not in approval, but in your own well-being, your own peace, your own joy. And for many, that realization comes with age. It comes after decades of giving, of running, of putting everyone else first. You wake up one day and ask, what about me? Not in bitterness, but in clarity. Because in old age, you begin to see that self-focus is not selfishness, it's self-preservation, it's survival, it's sanity. You've likely spent most of your life focused outward. You gave everything you had to your work, your your community. You sacrificed sleep, dreams, comfort and time, so others could thrive. You played roles, you wore masks, you lived up to expectations. But now something shifts. Now you're no longer required to stretch yourself in 100 directions. Now you have the right to choose yourself, without apology. And the truth is you always did. You just didn't know it then. You start to understand that your energy is precious. It's not infinite. It's not something to be handed out to anyone who demands it. And the older you get, the more aware you become of where your energy goes, and what you get in return.
Yeah.
And when you were younger, maybe you thought it was your duty to fix everything, to be there for everyone, to absorb the chaos around you. But now you see that not everything is yours to carry. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every relationship is worth maintaining. That realization, painful as it may be at first, is freedom in disguise. You learn to put boundaries where there used to be guilt. You learn to say no without explaining. You learn to rest without guilt. And in that quiet shift, you reclaim something you didn't even know you lost yourself. You also begin to appreciate the small things. Your morning routine, a walk in the sun, the rhythm of your own breath. Things that once seemed mundane now feel like gifts. And that's what self-focus really is. It's returning to the present moment, to yourself, to the life that's been waiting for you behind all the distractions. Make no mistake, this isn't about turning your back on the world. It's about turning your heart inward and saying, I matter too. You can still love others. You can still give, support, listen, and be present. But now you do it from a place of wholeness, not depletion. You give from overflow, not obligation. You're no longer pouring from an empty cup. You've learned to fill your own first. There's wisdom in slowing down. There's grace in choosing simplicity. You no longer need the chaos to feel alive. You no longer need the applause to feel valuable. You understand now that your life is yours, not something to be lived on borrowed terms. When you focus on yourself, you reconnect with your own voice, the one that may have been drowned out for years. You start asking different questions. What brings me peace? What brings me joy? What do I want to create with the time I have left? These questions may not have clear answers right away. They guide you back to yourself, little by little. Breathe and breathe. You begin to look at your days differently. Every hour matters more. You protect your time with the care it deserves. You think twice before allowing drama, negativity, or nonsense into, not because you're cold, but because you're finally aware of how valuable your peace is. And perhaps most importantly, you learn to forgive yourself for the years you lost to fear, for the boundaries you didn't set, for the times you betrayed your own needs to keep others happy. But that was a part of your journey too. Don't carry regret. Carry wisdom. It brought you here.
Yeah.
And here now is where you begin to live more intentionally, more gently, more truthfully. So when people ask why you're quieter these days, why you keep to yourself more, why you no longer entertain every invitation or conversation, let them wonder. You don't owe the world an explanation for your healing. You don't owe anyone access to the parts of you that are still learning how to breathe again. This chapter of your life is for you, and not everyone needs to be a part of it. There's no need to chase anything anymore. You've done enough. You've been enough. Now is the time to simply be, to be still, to be present, to be at peace. You spent a lifetime surviving. Now it's time to start truly living for you. Let self-focus be your revival.